children. Welcome to 12th Standard Computer Application, Chapter 3. This is the third video of this Chapter 3. The learning objectives are the basic concepts of ER model. ER is nothing but entity relationship. We are dealing with database. In this chapter, we are dealing with database. So, entity relationship between the database is explained in this. ER is nothing but entity relationship, ER model. First, ER model. We use ER model to know the concept of database design. And this model consists of collection of entities, that is real world objects. Entity is nothing but real world object, where each of these entities will be interconnected with each other with conditions and dependencies. So the ER modeling basic concepts. The basic concepts are entity or entity type, attributes, then comes relationship. Okay. Entity or entity type. An entity can be anything, a real world object or animation which is easily identifiable by anyone, even by a common man. See, for example, if you take company database, like employee, HR, manager are considered as entities. So each and every person, employee is a person, HR is human resource, manager is a person. These persons are considered as entities, where each of this entity will be having their own attributes. An entity is represented by rectangular box. As I said, one entity can have many attributes, like a salesperson can have name, age, like that. Those name, age are considered as attributes. An entity in ER diagram or in ER model is represented by a rectangular box. See, this is one entity. Employee is an entity represented by rectangular. Manager is also an entity represented by rectangle box. There are three types of entity. One is strong entity, weak entity, and entity instance. Strong entity, that means that entity will have primary key. It is represented by one rectangle, like a normal entity. It is the one which doesn't depend on any other entity, on the schema or database. It does not depend on any other entity. It will have primary key. It is represented by one rectangle. Whereas weak entity, that depends on another entities and it does not have any primary key, like strong entity. It is represented by double rectangle. As I said, strong entity will have primary key and will not depend, whereas weak entity will depend on another and will not have primary key. That's all. Strong entity will be represented in single rectangle. Here weak entity with double rectangle. What do you mean by entity instance? Instances are values for the entity. Instances are value for the entity. For example, if any entity, if you take human, we have male and female values. Jobs, if you consider as entity instances are engineer, doctor, lawyer. If you consider actor as an entity, values are Ajit, Vijay, Vikram, and so on. Like that, here if we consider animals as an entity, their instances are dog, cat, cow. Able to understand? Coming to attributes, second concept of ER model. Um, Before attributes, what we have seen is entity, entity types, and entity instance. Now, attributes. An attribute is the information about the entity. See, attribute is the information about the entity. An attribute will always have a single value. That value may be a number or a character. See here, 40 is a number and F is a character. Number, age is number, character, male or female. Here I have written name with strings. What are the types of attributes? Key attributes, simple attributes, composite attributes, single valued attributes, and multi-valued attributes. So this is a important, very, very important 5-mark question. ER model. You have to explain about entity, types of entity, attributes, types of attributes, and entity, instance or entity, attributes, as well as relationship. Okay, in ER model, what are the concept? Entity or entity type, attributes, and relationship. Now we are in attributes, key attributes, simple attributes, composite attributes, single valued, multi-valued. Key attribute means what? Generally, a key attribute describes a unique characteristics of an entity. Unique characteristics of an entity. For example, employee ID. So this will be considered as primary key. Key means primary key. Okay. Simple attributes. Next comes simple attributes. Simple attributes cannot be separated. It will be having a single value for their entity. Let us consider the name as an attribute for an entity, employee, and here the value for that attribute is a single value. So it is called as simple attribute. Composite attribute means you have address. Address or composite, here I have what example I have given is name, first name and last name cannot be separated. Here the composite attribute can be subdivided into simple attributes without change in the meaning of that attribute. Can be subdivided. Name can be divided into first name and last name, but in the meaning, without change in the meaning of that attribute. Next is single valued attribute. Okay, single valued attribute is nothing but one value. One value can be given. A single valued attribute contains only one value for the attribute, and they don't have multiple number of values. For example, age, roll number, single valued attribute. Age, only one age. Here in your book, multi-value attributes, degree can be used. It is given, it is not given like that. Degree, many degrees. A person can study many degrees or can have many degrees. But if you take age or roll number, age, only one age. A person can have only one age, as well as a student can have only one roll number. That is called a single valued attribute. Whereas multi-valued attribute means can have more than one value for that particular attribute. For example, if degree is an attribute, okay, here BTech MBA are two values. Like that, if a bank account is considered as attribute, a person can have two bank accounts. Two values are there. more than one value are there, so it is considered as multi-valued attribute. A person can hold n number of degrees, so it is multi-valued attribute. Okay, comes relationship type. Here relationship is nothing but, in ER model, relationship exists between two entities, and that relationship, three types of relationships are available: one to one, one to many, many to many. The symbol for relation is, see here, it is given clearly, diamond. Okay. Entity A has a relationship with entity B that should be represented by this diagram. See here, entity A has relationship with entity B. There are three types of relationship: one to one to many, to many. One to one. One to one means one customer places one loan. One teacher. One to many means one teacher teaches many students. Many to many means many students studies many courses. Relationship instance. Each instance of the relationship between members of these entity types is called as relationship instance. Example: works for, purchase. So these are all entity relationship instances. Employee works for this department. Next is degree of relationship. Number of entity types involved. Degree means number of entity types involved is known as degree of relationship. Degree may be 1, 2, or 3. Okay. Manager of this company works for, purchase, like that. Cardinality. It is defined as number of items that must be included. Number of items, cardinal. There you have in relationship degree. Here it is defined as number of items that must be included in a relationship. Number of entities in one set mapped with number of entities of another set. Okay, there are three classification in cardinality: one to one to many, many to many. Same thing. One person drive one vehicle, one to one. One customer places many orders. Many students register many courses. Same thing. But here, number of items only included in cardinality. See, in ER diagram, like flow chart, ER diagram contains many notations for many components. Entity, if an entity is strong, single rectangle. If an entity is weak, double rectangle. For relationship, this rhombus. Between relationship between relationship between entities can be represented rhombus within rhombus if it is weak. Attributes can be represented by ellipse symbol. Connected to entity. Attribute should be connected with the entity with ellipse shape. Key attributes for entity is, inside ellipse you have to mention key attribute, and derived attribute for entity, multi-valued attribute should be represented like this. Okay. With this, we'll end the session. Thank you.